Well, you can call me naive, but I really did believe that Bowie County could simply stop the illegal financing practices of the past, pay the price to balance the books, and avoid the blame game. I no longer believe the solution is that simple. Two controversies have arisen over the borrowing practices of the previous Bowie County Judge, James Carlow. First, did he follow applicable state and federal laws and regulations when it came to financing purchases such as this old SWEPCO building here at 601 Main Street in Texarkana? Second, if he acted outside the law, did stopping the illegal practices of the past administration have a negative impact on Bowie County's reserve fund during my administration? In order to settle the first controversy, I've asked appropriate state and federal agencies to initiate investigations into the financial practices of Bowie County that falls into their particular jurisdiction. The second controversy cannot be settled until the investigators of the first controversy are completed. In the news release packets being distributed to you, you will find my 5-page declaration drawn from months of investigation by me and my staff, along with the cover letters to a federal and state agency. I think you will find sufficient evidence to substantiate my concerns and justify my request for further investigations by third parties outside the county. I'd ask the release be released at this time. Would you make sure the media gets it first? We may have enough for everybody. Do we have questions?
What state and federal laws are you talking about?
The federal laws will primarily center around our representing ourselves to the banks as these being tax-exempt loans, so that they were not taxed on the profits they made from the interest they charged us. And if indeed the banks did do that and they were not tax exempt, and if they're not legal in Texas, they're not tax exempt, if they were not properly done, then that's where the federal agencies would come in.
Did this make the county look like they had more money than they did?
That's what it appears, and that's what I'm asking them to establish. It looks like somewhere between $2 and $3 million disappeared as soon as we stopped the old practice that was not proper to begin with.
Are you stating that borrowing against a paid-for property the second time is illegal?
What was approved by the Commissioner's Court was what they call time warrants. Time warrant is a warrant that you give to the person you're buying the property from. In Texas, you're even allowed to arrange with the local bank to negotiate that for them, and they can get their money right away. But a time warrant is given to the people you're buying the property from. So once you borrow the money and pay that off, then the next time you borrow money, who are you going to give a time warrant to? You can't give it to the bank in Texas. Time warrants are not negotiable by the county. They have to be given to the vendor. Once the vendor is paid off, then time warrants should not be issued.
How much money are you talking about?
We're talking about probably around $3 million in any given year, perhaps as much as $30 million in the last 10 to 12 years of Judge Carlow's administration.
So, Judge, are you saying that they borrowed the money against it from the banks around here?
Yes, the money was borrowed from the local banks.
And then that against the law?
That's what I'm asking to be investigated.
Okay. I thought it was.
Yes.
So why bring this out now versus last year?
That's a good question, Fred. Thank you. There are two main issues involved here. One is I could never figure out what the gain was. The money appears would, in a 2-year process, go from being taxed to pay off debt to the operations side of the budget. And I couldn't see what was being gained by it. But over 6,000 Bowie County citizens recently petitioned successfully for a rollback election. And when I did my studies after the first of the year and began to look it up, I realized that they should have had that right to a rollback petition 10 or 12 years ago, and probably each year since, if our truth in taxation ads had been properly recorded.
Is there a timeline on how long it might take to get to the bottom of this, as far as the investigative agencies are concerned? Any idea? We're looking at a month, 2 months, year? Any idea?
I don't have any idea how long they take in their research and their study, but I know that all of the dockets and materials are available for them to immediately start on.
And who are they? Who will be the investigative agencies?
I've started with Department of Justice federal-wise because the bank's being involved in the IRS. And I've started with both the Attorney General's office and the State Comptroller's office. The State Comptroller's office is the one that regulates the proper posting of the truth in taxation ads and notices for the public that were not proper all those years.
So you're asking them, have you had a response?
No, we've just begun the last few days mailing those requests out. And what you have is the 5-page declaration with 4 pages of supplementary material behind that I sent to to each one of these agencies.
When do you expect a response, or do you?
I expect a response any day. It might be next week, but I would be surprised if I don't start hearing from them next week.
So how much did this cost the citizens of Bowie County?
That's difficult to figure. One of the main things it did was it disguised money that was eventually spent on the operations side of the budget, but it was taxed on the debt side, and that's what we're asking to establish. It could mean that interest on millions of dollars of loans was being paid, which would have been unnecessary if it simply been taxed on the operations side and we'd not been taxed on the debt service side. And so somebody will have to calculate that up and see what the total dollars are. Any other questions?
Are you just talking about 601 Main, or are there other?
No, it would be, I've zeroed in my 5-page document on 601 Main and the loans that were made over about a 12-year period of time after the property was fully paid for. But it involves all of the heavy road equipment that was financed, and that's where most of that $30 million would come from.
The subject for this facility here was borrowed at one time, paid off, and now we want to borrow again. Do I understand it correctly?
No, we stopped borrowing on it. In fact, the county stopped borrowing on it a few days before I took office, but had borrowed on it for 12 years previous to that.
But it was paid off at one time.
It was paid off in 1998. Any other questions? I certainly appreciate all of you being here today, and please study out the material that you have, and I'll keep you up to date with the progress on the investigations. Thank you.